Of those people that work in my Melbourne office, the average tenure in my MSP is 17 years. 14 years ago, I listened to them and I took the tasks off them that they didn't want to do, and I moved those tasks overseas. And so I strongly believe that's why we have long tenure in our company. So for me, the monetary saving in that is phenomenal compared to the hourly saving that I get. So those are the things that drive up your profit margin, because somebody in Australia can do something. If they've been doing it for 17 years, they can do it in a quarter of the time that a new person can.
Hey guys, Damien Stevens, host of MSP Mindset, founder and CEO of Servosity. Today, I continue my mission to interview 100 of the fastest growing and most interesting MSPs on the planet and write the book on it. Today, I am blessed to be joined by Peter Bell. Now, he built an amazing 40-person MSP in Australia. At the same time, he built an amazing offshoring firm that solely serves MSPs to over 1,000 employees. And we go deep on culture and how that's enabled him to do this and keep people for longer than virtually anyone else. If you'd like to learn how to do that in your MSP, don't miss out on our conversation today. So Peter, I'm really excited to talk with you about quite a few things. And just as a teaser, you've managed to found and continue to operate 2 tech companies on 2 different continents. But before we get into all that interesting stuff, tell me about the genesis of starting your MSP and when that was, far earlier than most people.
Yeah, so Damien, thanks for having me. I started the MSP when I was 17. I did work experience at a computer company. Thought after 2 weeks I knew everything there was to know about computers. I decided that I would upgrade.
That's what my peak of knowledge was.
Yes.
About 17 to 20 is when I knew everything.
Yeah, thought I knew what I was doing. I decided that I would upgrade my family computer, and I blew it up. And I went back to the wholesaler and asked to buy some parts. And he said, "You can't buy parts. I'm a wholesaler. You need to be a business." So I said, "How do you start a business?" He told me, "You have to go into the Justice Department and register a company." So I thought, why not? I hopped on the train and went in and went to register it. And they said, "Can I have your driver's license?" And I said, "I'm 17. I don't have a driver's license." They go, "You have to be 18 to register a company." So I caught the train back home. My brother and I, my brother's who's older than me, came in with his driver's license. We registered a business. And, that was, 32 years ago. Been in the MSP industry ever since.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so that's how it started. By accident, literally by accident, blowing up a computer.
So I imagine it wasn't managed services. Tell me about what you started off doing.
Yeah, so we started the business by selling printer cables.
Okay.
So for those that are younger, they probably won't recognise this, but back in the day when printers come out, you had to buy the cable. And we got a distribution where we'd buy them off a wholesaler. We'd staple all our labels on at night. We'd send them out the next day to retail stores around Australia. And that's how we started the business. We ran it from the parents' house until one day the phone rang and my mum answered it. And they said, "Is there room for the 40-foot container?" And she goes, "What?" And she said to us, "It's time to move the business out of the home." So we went and got our office. Our first office cost us $90 a week in rent. We had to
$90 a week. I don't speak Australian, but that doesn't sound like a lot.
It's about $45 US a week for an office. And it took us 6 weeks to whether we could afford that and whether we would do that. Yeah. $45 US a week was our first office. And then over the years we grew and we hired friends that had no knowledge or interest in IT at all. So the first sort of half dozen hires were just people that we knew that had the same values and ideas that we had, and we taught them. I can say this now because obviously that was 30 plus years ago. One of the gentlemen we hired, he goes, "I don't know computers." We said, "That's right. I want you to go out, move the mouse around a few times, click it, tell them it's really broken, and bring it back to the office." And I would fix them at night, and then the staff would drop them back during the day. They could show people how to use them, they just didn't know how to fix them. And that's how we started 32 years ago, break fix, and supplying computer parts to customers around Melbourne and Australia.
That's really cool. Thank you for joining me from Australia.
No, thank you.
Making the time.
Thanks for having me.
Hey guys, Damien here. As I continue to interview the top MSPs in the world, one thing has become incredibly clear. It's time that we let go. Even more than that, every time I focus on my zone of genius and get out of the way and do the very few things I'm good at and delegate to others, I'm ready for that next level of growth. So if you're ready for that next level of growth, one way that I could help you is with Servosity. We co-manage your backups and disaster recovery so you can focus on what you do best, let us do the rest, and then what we do is we test the backups every single day so you never have to worry. If you'd like to learn more, click the link below. So when did the idea of managed services start for you guys?
We had a customer early on in the late 90s, early 2000s that had been studying over in the US and come back to Australia and said to us, I've got an idea. I want you to go and buy some servers, put them in the data center, give me access to them and charge me monthly. And we said, well, I don't know about it. He goes, yeah, it's this thing called managed computing over in the US. It's going to be big. We now know it as cloud computing. So he was on a very large expansion plan. So we went out, we bought lots of servers, put them in a data center, got all these RDS farms up and running, spent every cent we had to get this up and running. 3.5 months later, he went bankrupt. And we stopped and went, right, well, we have literally $1 million or $1.5 million worth of equipment. What are we going to do with it? And so we decided at that point that we'd start selling managed computing. We now know it as cloud computing. And from that point onwards, we'd had some form of early level MSP where we'd done management and looked after people's infrastructure. We evolved that over time to managing all their equipment on site, but we come at it a different way. We decided that we would finance all the equipment that went on site. So we decided that we didn't like the finance companies that were around at the time and the interest rates were too high. So we provided all the desktops and peripherals into the organisations as well and financed all that. So our managed model was a complete managed model, not only the service, but also the equipment and the financing behind it.
That's pretty crazy. Let me back up a step or two. It sounds like you were basically what we would now call a cloud provider.
Yeah, we were.
Before you were really an MSP.
Correct. Yeah, and still a cloud provider today, the private cloud provider.
I think most people grabbed onto MSP and then later cloud. So you were well ahead.
Yeah, we didn't like the traditional MSP model at the time in regards to we want to always show value and transparency to our clients. And the early adaptation of an MSP was a flat rate monthly per device, per user type model. We didn't see the value that the client was getting out of it. Yes, the MSPs got value out of it. Then we saw a race to the bottom. We saw the introduction of a lot of the software packages that are common today, and people just sending tickets to their clients saying, I restarted this service, I restarted that service, here's your bill. And clients were like, I don't know, where's the interaction? Where's the human side of it? So we decided at that point we'd go a different path. Yes, we had our managed cloud computing, but most of our traditional on-prem customers were under the prepaid model or the ad hoc pay-as-you-go type model. We didn't really bring the MSP model into our traditional customer base until much later.
Interesting.
Yeah, so very different to the norm, I guess.
Very different. Yeah. Now, I got to ask, Peter, when you get left with $1 million, $1.5 million in equipment after 3 months, what on earth makes you go, gee, I want to finance and bankroll other customers? I think I would be thinking quite the opposite.
Have you ever heard of the saying, in for a penny, in for a pound? Well, once you're in the dark room, you've got to find your way out, don't you? And so we just saw a great opportunity at the time in Australia. I think interest rates on computer equipment was sub 17 to 19% interest rates. And we're like, well, if we can fund that and do that at 12 or 15%, the customer's saving, so the customer wins. We win because instead of having the money in the bank and earning 1-2%, you're earning 12 to 15%. Why not? It's a win-win. We keep control of the hardware. Yes, there's a risk factor in there, but if you have good clients, that risk is dramatically reduced. Even though a good client of ours went bankrupt and left us, holding all this equipment. But sometimes in life and sometimes in business, as they say, you get lemons, you make lemonade. Well, we were given a truckload of lemons because we were stuck with equipment that we didn't need, want, or know how to use. and we had to come up with a way of doing it. And the simple add-on was, instead of me charging you capital for one component of your business and OPEX for the other, I just made the whole thing easy and made the whole thing OPEX. Yes, it meant for a couple of lean years at the start, but once momentum got going, it was very easy for us. We still do the same model today. We finance a lot of equipment for our customers.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's super out of the box. Was that just market timing and being innovative, or was that, gee, I'm sitting on a pile of gear, so I might as well finance it? Or I'm just curious how that.
It was a bit of both. What we saw at the time was another large customer who went into receivership. They'd bought hardware recently. All their software was done under the Microsoft SPLA program at the time. So there wasn't a large risk because obviously software financing was very difficult back in those days. And what we found was when they went to resell the hardware, their administrators, there was no warranty on it. Warranty wasn't transferable. And the hardware that was worth a lot is now worth virtually nothing. No one wanted to buy it. So we sold the equipment originally to the customer, and literally within 6 to 8 months, we bought all the equipment back at a tenth of what we'd sold it for. We didn't care that there was no warranty because we were able to self-warrant. It was the standard kit of equipment that we use for all of our customers. So we end up self-warranting the gear, but we never sold it again. We put it on site and did it as a MSP model where we just charged a monthly fee for them to have access to that equipment. If we'd bought all that software in the first place and sold them that software, well, that is all wasted and gone. It's all licensed in their name. Because we'd done the SPLA model, we're able to stop the SPLA and then reuse the hardware, put the SPLA back on, and from that day onwards, we virtually never sold a server again. We always did them as a managed product because it gave us the flexibility, because software started becoming 50, 60% of the overall deal value.
Yeah.
And things like Microsoft SPLA were allowing us to do that. Obviously, in modern days, 365 and other SaaS-based. This is, and we're talking 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, I was thinking this is what, early 2000s?
It is. This is in 2000s. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's how we ended up there, by accident, but was able to make the best out of a bad situation.
What's interesting to me is now people are realizing to standardize, but it sounds like, you standardize for maybe a few reasons. I'd love to hear that. But now MSPs are starting to realize, even if I do on-prem and this, we need to standardize. But if you're repairing it and doing perhaps even the financing, I'm sure you drove a far different level of standardization. Yeah,
we decided early on, in my experience, there's two types of MSPs. There's those that are driven by technicians and those that are driven by business people. The technician is always going to want to put the latest, greatest and best toy or tool in. The business person is going to weigh up the economics of that tool or that hardware and their ability to deliver on the promises they make. And what we found was we always kept our offering tight. We didn't offer everything. We specifically used HPE or HP servers back in the day. We're a Fortinet house, a Cisco switching house. We stayed with specific products. And we explained to the clients that we use those because everybody in our company is capable of supporting them. We see too many companies these days going out and buying the best of breed everywhere, but then having one technician or one person in that organisation that's capable of supporting it. And what that leads to is it leads to a situation where your profit margins drop and stress on your staff go up, and you find that you don't keep your staff as long, your customers are unhappy, and you get in that vicious churn wheel where you're chasing new work because you're losing work, but because you're chasing work, you're always going to lose work. And so we decided early on we wanted a different approach.
So you mentioned the profit margins, and we were talking kind of backstage, one of your, you view things differently versus chasing MRR. So tell me what you mean by that.
Look, I'd say to you, one of my pet peeves in our industry as a whole, worldwide, and I've been lucky enough to travel around the world quite a lot the last few years, talking to MSPs all over the place, is software vendors have pushed the MSP market to think about MRR and ARR. I can't count how many times I've had conversations with business owners, and all they do is sit there and compare how big theirs is to the next guy or the next girl. And for me, it's very frustrating that as business owners, we've got to be talking about the profit margin in our business, not the revenue margin in our business. I don't want the world's biggest revenue company. I want to make sure that I've got profit. And profit, I think some owners are, and I find this generally from more tech-led companies, it's almost like having profit is a bad thing. Like they feel guilty having profit. And they shouldn't, because profit is not just about you making more money and spending it on fast cars or houses or whatever that be. It's also giving you a buffer. It's giving you leverage in your business so that you can seize opportunity when it presents, and you can defend when things go wrong, because things are always happening in this world, and you need to be able to prepare for it. If margins go up, and I'll give you a very quick example. Sri Lanka, where one of our offices is, the country has just announced a 15% tax on foreign income. We have 60 days and that comes into place. So within 60 days, our cost base in that country has gone up 15% overnight, similar to other parts of the world with other changes. But we have to be able to adapt to that and be ready for those changes. So I don't like talking about recurring revenue. I like talking about the profit margins in business. And, the numbers bandied around by a lot of the large American companies is that the average MSP is making less than double digits. They're 8-9% margin in their business. And that's unhealthy and dangerous for everybody.
So I want to dig more in profit margin, but before I do, you said something I think that I've seen before, which is, especially maybe in a tech-led MSP, there's some like almost guilt for profit. Why do you think that is?
I think they genuinely want to look after the customer, and they have no problem in doing that from a technical perspective. They want to put the best tools in. They want to put the best hardware, the best protection, the best redundancy. From a technical perspective, they have no issue at all in putting those things in. But you've also then got to take your technician's hat on and put your business hat on and go, there has to be a balance. And I think to be honest, I think it's around a conversation of risk. And what we have to do is not assume the risk on behalf of the client. We have to sit down with the client and go, risk versus reward. We can mitigate as much as we can. It'll never be 100%. But the more we mitigate, the higher the cost. And I think that's a conversation that tech-led MSPs are probably less comfortable in having, because it's a business discussion. And it's not for us to choose our customer's risk profile. It's for us to explain to them the pros and cons of the risk, and they have to have the appetite to accept some of the risk to lower the price. And I think that's part of where the challenge comes in, that tech-led MSPs feel guilty when it comes to making a good margin on it, because they want to genuinely look after the client. But they can't do that if they're not in business.
Right.
And that's the challenge, the balance that has to be struck. Because if a good staff member of theirs comes to them and wants a pay rise, well, how are they going to give them that pay rise if there's no margin? They're going to lose good staff members, which is what we see again and again in a lot of businesses. They lose their number one client, and all of a sudden they have a big hole in their sales or their profit margin. So I think that's why. I think they're more comfortable having that. This tool will do this for you. This will protect you. This is how it works, compared to that business conversation. And I would urge them that they've got to get help in that side of the conversation with the client.
So going back to margins, what do you think we should be at as an MSP? What kind of margins should we be really driving?
I think you should be looking at more 20 to 25% margin. I know some of the industry reckon 30% margin, because that's what accountants and lawyers and others get. I think 20 to 25% will allow you to protect your back end, so allow you to protect your staff if there's need for pay rises. It'll protect you in the event that you've got to go out and buy equipment for unknown reasons. It'll give you a buffer to try different things. One of the biggest challenges is keeping your staff trained and up to date. being able to switch into other verticals, being able to offer services that you don't currently offer. So I think more that 20 to 25% is probably where MSPs need to get to.
So how do you do that?
How do you do that? Good question. One, obviously, AI and automation is going to help you to a certain degree. But we have to be careful as an industry that if we just AI and automate everything, that we don't become a straight commodity business, that there's no difference between your business and mine except for the colour of our invoice and the logos that we put on there. You've got to maintain service. So we took an approach a number of years ago. So 14 years ago, we saw an opportunity to open in Asia, and we opened our own office in the Philippines. We opened up an office there for our back of house. We didn't agree at the time 14 years ago with the automation process. We wanted to make sure that when we sent a report to a customer, there was a person's name at the bottom of the report. And I have a rule. Any report that we send a client must be able to be read in less than 30 seconds. And we use a lot of stoplights and a lot of colours and pictures because if not, the important people in that organisation will not read your reports. So my rule is simple. If we create a dashboard or a report or something for a client, it's got to be able to be read in less than 30 seconds. It's got to stand out to you, and it's got to have someone's name. Someone has to own that report. So that when our clients ring up and say, can I speak to John? John knows exactly why there was a red item on there, why they're having this problem, but we've already fixed it. We're just letting them know they had a problem and we fixed it. Thus, you're adding value to the client. If you just fix it and send a report at the end of the month, and when they ring up and ask the question, the first thing the technician goes, I don't know, I don't look after your account, or let me look that up. They go, what am I paying for? I'm paying for an AI bot or an automation bot to do something. Why can't I source that myself? I think someone said the other day in something I watched that technicians are going away because people will Google the response. They'll use ChatGPT or Copilot. And they're not wrong. They will, but they also want a second opinion. They also want to talk to somebody. So 14 years ago, we opened our office in Asia, and that was the start of absolutely dynamically changing the profit structure of our business.
So what I want to try to unpack that a little bit more. There's a lot you said, but let me just start at the beginning.
Yep.
Why open an office? Why then? And why in that country?
So in Australia, down the east coast, you have three main cities: Melbourne, Sydney, and Brisbane. They're the three main. They're the cities that everyone tends to open an office in. We had an office in Melbourne, obviously, which is where I live here. We were going to open an office in Sydney, which is the biggest market in Australia, and the rent was really expensive. You'll get a theme here with me and rent. I didn't like paying large rent. And we had an opportunity in.
So it was more than $75 a week.
Yeah, it was a lot more than $75 a week. We had an opportunity. One of our customers had hired some staff in Manila, and they wanted us to do a security check on the network. It was just opportunity. I was in Hong Kong at the time. We did a lot of work with an international carrier called PACnet and subsea cable transit. So a lot of Australian stuff is manufactured in China and Asia, and so we helped Australian customers with that. So I went to the Philippines for a weekend, and I just knew straight away after a weekend there that we were going to open up an office and that we were going to put our back of house, not our front of house, just our back of house, and we were going to have human automation. Instead of paying a North American company crazy money to automate something, I was going to have human beings do it. So I got the same, if not better, I would say better output. I'm biased, but I got better output. It was cheaper. And at the same time, I saw lives transformed overseas instead of large corporates lining pockets in the US. I'll phrase it that way. And that's how it started. Yeah. 2 people.
So you said you went over the weekend and just knew that's Manila's where you were going to open an office.
Yeah, basically.
Why?
My brother and I were over there and we went out. We're on our way back to the hotel. This is 14 years ago. A lot of the taxi drivers didn't speak English. It was Tagalog only. The taxi driver couldn't understand us. We couldn't work out where our hotel was. He pulled over and a security guard was there. And this was in the wee hours of the morning. We'd been out that night. And the security guard was talking and then he hopped in the car. And I tell this story. The security guard hopped in. He hopped in with his shotgun, I turned to my brother at the time, who's my business partner, and said, "This is the smartest or dumbest decision we've ever made." And we went about 4 or 5 blocks over and went to our hotel. We got out. We tried to give the security guards some money, and the doorman at the hotel said, no, he doesn't want any money. He just wanted to make sure you got home safe. And then he walked back the 4 blocks to his building that he was looking after. I said to my brother, if they'd been back in Australia, that would never have happened. The security guard would have just told the taxi driver a few choice words. It was then that we realised that the level of service that we got over there was well above what we were getting. There was zero level of entitlement. And that's probably one of the biggest things that struck us, the work ethic and no entitlement. That the security guard was just happy to help. And we said, let's do it. So we opened up the business. We come back to Australia. We asked who wanted to go over there. 1 year, all expenses paid. 2 of the guys said they'd go. One of them had run a call centre before. So we sent him over for 1 year. He's now been there for 15 years. Never come home.
That's really cool. So I want to break that apart. You said, I want to sit in the back of the house, not the front of the house. What does that mean? And when now you know a lot. We'll get to the things you've learned now, but like at the beginning, what the heck were you thinking? And how did you have like a goal for like this many people or this thing? Like what were you? Why even open an office?
I was fixing a problem. The problem I had 14 years ago is Windows automatic updates was terrible and caused me more grief than good. And, you would set all your servers to reboot on a Sunday because the customers weren't in. It was all on-prem servers back then. And Monday morning, the proverbial would hit the fan. Everything will have broken. Everyone's down at once. I used to hate Monday mornings. I didn't want to get out of bed. So we decided that we would manually patch all our stuff at night during the week. We offered to pay overtime. Nobody wanted to do it in Australia. And we get it. 14 years ago, a lot of our staff had young families and you want family time. We get it. There was no issue. So we said we have to find a way of doing it. We went to the Philippines and the back of house was all they were doing were checking our backups and patching our servers, our firewalls, our switches, doing all of the maintenance work. They were never meant to be front of house talking to clients. I come from an old retail background where the phone had to be answered within 3 rings or I got upset. We were hitting those KPIs and we were doing really well. We were smashing them and the phone metrics were great. And I was in the Philippines one time and my country manager there, Pete Hammond, said to me, you know how you're hitting your metrics, don't you? And I go, no. He goes, look over there. And there are our Philippine staff taking all the calls. And we got to a point where we had customers saying to us, I want to talk to this technician. I go, oh, he's in the Philippines. And they go, well, no, he's in Australia. I go, no, he's in the Philippines. They go, but he does it the same way you do. And that's where we honed in on our practice that if we were hiring the staff and training them our way, it was an extension of our business. It was irrelevant where the seat was. It was the way in which our business treated our customers, worked on the problem that made the difference. And so we quickly went from 2 people to, I think, 6 or 8 at the time. And that was all both back and front of house at that point. It was never meant to be. It was just, again, by accident.
So you initially set out to solve what was kind of the Windows patch
essentially.
nightmare. And instead of what most people, even business, I think, would say, use some automation, use some RMM, something like that. You set out to do it with real people.
Yes, because the customer could have a conversation the next day with the person who actually did it. The person, our staff could call them up and say, hey, Damien, last night I did this, this, and this. Now, by the way, whilst I was on there, I noticed this and open up a conversation. So just as a sidebar, in our company, we only have 1 salesperson. For the whole MSP, there's 1 salesperson, that's it. Because everybody in our company is a salesperson. But we don't sell. We listen and we explain the challenges the customer has. And so everybody by extension becomes a salesperson. So essentially our salesperson is the one that formalizes the quotes to the client, but we don't have a structured formal sales team. Never have. It's just, again, something that we've just done. It won't work for everybody. It works for us.
Yeah. So kind of buoyed by that win, what did you do next?
Yeah, so we decided that we would double down and we expanded that team. So today we've got 14 people in Australia that directly work for that MSP, and we have 26 people in the Philippines that work for the MSP. And so we expanded that, and we now do our service delivery. Our QA is done over there, voice networking, level 1 help desk, level 2 help desk is over there as well. We have a programming team, both there and in Sri Lanka, that does all our software programming for us, our add-ons for our clients, things like that. So our team in Australia essentially is level 3 project and management, and the rest of our company is primarily in the Philippines and Sri Lanka.
So roughly 2/3 are outside your nation. Why?
2 reasons. Availability of staff. There was a shortage, which is a global shortage that everyone's experienced. The population growth in those countries is very large, which means there's a lot of students coming out of college. Very young workforce, so adapting to new technology very easily. Very hungry to learn, so willing to go on courses and training and better themselves. The eagerness to work and the work product that you get, following instructions. I know as soon as you mention offshoring, everyone says the problem is they don't think for themselves, and you are right. That's a constraint that you have, but we used it to our advantage. We process things. When we first went there 14 years ago, we had no documentation. We did the traditional MSP way, which was the new person starts, I'll show you how to do it. You show the next bloke, you show the next one.
Right.
The Chinese whispers of the MSP industry gets to a point where the last person is not doing it the way it's meant to be done. And the company wonders why they can't grow, wonders why they have challenges, customers are unhappy. 92%, a bit over 92% of all of our documentation in our business is written by our staff in the Philippines. So we have a process called show one, do one, document one. Our senior staff in Australia will show staff how to do it the first time. They will jump on the call with them the second time to make sure that it's done correctly, at which point that staff member documents it. We use IT Glue. Obviously, you can use any product. It's not a sales pitch. It's just what we use. We'll document it, but then our senior team will vet that document to make sure that it's done the way in which they want it done technically. It gives us 2 opportunities. It gives us a document written at a quarter of the price that I would have written locally. The second one is it gives me an opportunity to confirm that there's knowledge transfer. If I just say, did you understand that? You'll get a nod and say yes, even with my staff here in Melbourne. So I get a way of testing without them knowing it's a test. And you get rid of, I think, the most dangerous thing in our industry, and that's assumed knowledge. People assume somebody knows something just because they know it, and allows you to get rid of that and then straighten your company up. Great if you want to undergo M&A or if you want to sell your business in future. If you've got good documentation, good structure, your multiples are going to be higher naturally. Or it allows you to go and acquire other businesses because you've got those processes in place to go and do it. So, yeah, that's essentially how we went about it.
So you've got your MSP, you built out the offices initially in Manila and doubled the staff, kind of kept going, kept growing. Obviously, you've got 2 businesses now. One of them is much larger. So when did you start Techno Global and just what is the quick?
Yeah, so very quick. So 12 years ago. Yeah, so 12 years ago, our one of our competitors here in Melbourne to our MSP bumped into me in the Philippines and said, can you hire some staff for me? And I said, we're direct competitors in Melbourne. Why would I do that? And he sort of said, well, this way I'm not your competitor. We'll work together. I thought, why not? So 12 years ago, we'd been there for 3 years. It was working for us. We hired some staff for him. He was part of back then called HTG. These guys evolved peer groups through ConnectWise. Everyone in his peer group saw his wages to revenue change, asked the question. Next minute they wanted staff and next one wanted staff. Fast forward 12 years, we're now in 4 different buildings throughout the Philippines and Sri Lanka. We've got just over 1,000 people, and we support probably around 300 MSPs around the world. So that part of the business is now 5 or 6 times the size of our MSP by far. And so we're helping other businesses make the change that we made 14 years ago.
And why is this more than just outsourcing or offshoring from your perspective? Like, what does this do to my MSP if I do this?
I'll just clarify one thing. Outsourcing and offshoring to me are very different. It's black and white, chalk and cheese. Outsourcing is when you send your tax return to your accountant. You want your outcome. You just want the outcome. You don't care, as they would say, how the sausage is made. You just want the sausage. Offshoring is where you have to be heavily involved in it at the start. And that's the secret that we found 14 years ago, that if you pick the people who work for you, if you train them, if you manage them, they're an extension of you and your business. I would never let a third-party company pick someone to represent my brand. This is my business and my brand. They just give me somebody, then my customer is going by extension to notice the difference. By me picking them, training them, choosing them, running them, I know my customer's experience, no matter who they use in my company, is the same. What that allows me to do is maintain my profit margins. I don't have to discount. When we first opened in the Philippines 14 years ago, I surveyed my clients and I asked them one question. I'm going to put my help desk in Asia. I'm not asking, I'm telling you. And I want to know one thing. Obviously, the wages in the Asian market are lower, so I can do one of two things for you. I can give you a cheaper rate on my help desk, or I can expand my service hours. Over 80% of my clients come back to me and say, well, if you are choosing them and training them and running them, we know our experience will be the same. We have no concerns there. But you're not always open when we need your help. And that's a problem for us. So 14 years ago, we changed our hours in the MSP. Our tagline was 8 to 8 at the same rate. So our standard business day, and it still is today, is a 12-hour day, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. is our standard business day. That captured probably 95 to 97% of all requirements of our customers. We may get one in a blue moon call up out of those to an emergency service, but captured the bulk of it. Our customers were happy. We were able to increase essentially our profit, not our revenue, because our revenue remained the same, but our hourly rate for our technician dropped. If a technician spent an hour on a call with you, I couldn't care less, because that hour is still less than 15 minutes of my technician in Melbourne. Customer is happy because they got their hand held through the whole process. So we increased our level of service to our clients. We decreased the expense to the business. And yes, we didn't greatly or rapidly increase our revenue, but we increased our margins. And that made a massive difference to us. And that allowed us to do other things. Back then, for the last 10 years, our staff have worked 1 or 2 days a week from home, even before COVID, just to allow them some time. So that's how it's made a difference. Even to a single operator, I had a gentleman come up to me at a conference and give me a hug. I didn't know who he was. And he goes, I use you at TGT. And he goes, I'm a single operator. He goes, but I did something yesterday that I've never done before. And I'm like, okay. You're always a bit worried when they say that. He goes, I took my daughter to school. I go, what do you mean? Because as a single operator, I always had to be at the computer. At 9 a.m. on a Monday morning, I had to be ready to fix problems, put fires out. He goes, but because I had somebody working for me that could answer the call, I took my daughter to school for the first time. And I went, okay. But then you realise that, yes, we're all in business and we're all here to make money and a living, but you can do it by lining the pockets of Fortune 500 companies in automation. You can improve people's lives, not just the ones offshore, but the ones onshore. You take the stress off. You allow them a business who is stuck and can't grow. Normally, they're 3 to 5 staff in an MSP and they're stuck. They can't work out how to grow the business. That's because for every person they put on, it's a very large expense. There's 2 ways to go about it. Put one person on in a lower cost zone, and it's a lower economic risk. I like the other way because I'm more in favour of risk. I would be cost neutral and hire the 2 people in a lower cost zone because now I've got double the capacity.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest thing I've found over the 14 years of doing this with other MSPs, they're great at chasing new clients and they give a lot of extra love to new clients, but clients that have been with them for a long time then tend to drop off because they're not feeling the love because they don't have the capacity, not because they don't mean to.
Right.
I like the other approach, have a lot of extra capacity and then go find the work.
So I want to dig into a little more. I think a lot of times people think of offshoring as purely cost savings.
Yep.
And okay, cost savings, increased margin. That's one way to think about it, right? How are the other ways? You mentioned, how you can enhance the service to your clients, how that can support the team you already have. Yep. And then I think it would be good if you'd share you have incredibly high tenure.
Yeah. So
MSP.
I'll correct one point that you said.
Please.
You will only save money offshoring if you do it correctly. Because if you don't do it right, you end up burning your customers and that'll cost you that revenue. So I have a simple rule. When anyone comes to talk to me, if they open the conversation with, how much am I going to save when I offshore? I say it's not right for them because they're in the wrong mindset. Anybody who opens the conversation with me, I want to grow my business. I want to change my lifestyle. Absolutely, they are perfect for offshoring. It's not just about the hourly rate. It's about the ability to do more. It's the ability to spread your hours, have longer trading hours. You'd be amazed the number of people who have come to me that said, I want to do 24/7. Once I sit down with them and go through, do you really know, do you need 24? And once we work it out that they can split their shifts and get an 8 or a 12-hour business day, 95% of all their after hours goes away because customers really just want you there before you open and after they get home, and it makes a big difference. It's a lower cost barrier to try something. So you might not offer web services. You may not offer SEO, bookkeeping. You may not offer certain services. For you to try that in your local environment might be very expensive and the risk is too high for the potential, the reward that you may get, because it could take 6 or 12 months for that to become cash flow positive. When you do it with a lower developing country where the wages are lower, your risk profile drops dramatically because you're still offering that service, but it doesn't cost you as much to try something out. We did that with web development. 12 years ago, I was sitting over there and I got asked by a local call center, do we offer SIP trunks? And I said, yeah, sure, no problems at all. And we had this conversation. They're right, this is what we need. And I got out of the meeting. I got on the phone. My brother turns to me and goes, what's a SIP trunk? I said, I don't know. You just said we sell them. I said, yeah, well, we've got a week to work out what they are. So I called my guys back in Melbourne and they said, yeah, we do it. And they explained what they were. Now I knew what they were. And we started doing, it was probably $100,000 a month in voice calls out of the Philippines as a result of that. As a salesperson, the only word I don't know is no. So I always try and find a way around it. Now, I couldn't go and hire 3 voice engineers to run the voice platforms. It was Asterix back then, to run those platforms in Australia. It would have been price prohibitive. But I could hire those 3 engineers in the Philippines straight away. I had a plan. I had a bucket of cash and said, right, here's what's going to happen. We're going to do it for a period of time. It'll either work or it won't. If it doesn't work, it's equivalent to me taking that bucket of cash and burning it. Is it going to annoy me? Absolutely. Is it going to stop my business dead in the tracks? No. And that's what I say to people. You have to actually be willing to take a risk, a step. You need to do it as a calculated risk and go, this amount of money, treat it as a marketing fund for 12 months, and you have to give it 12 months. If it works, it will change your life and your business. And if it doesn't work, at least you gave it a red hot go and no. But if you come into it just with the ideal of, I want to save money, it's not going to work for you because you will only get out of this what you put in at the start. we strongly. Sorry, go on.
So this is about better hours, better support, better for your team, not just how do I save a buck.
And what I didn't realize until many, many years later, of those people that work in my Melbourne office, the average tenure in my MSP is 17 years. So on average, my staff in Australia have been with me for 17 years.
That's crazy.
14 years ago, I listened to them and I took the tasks off them that they didn't want to do, and I moved those tasks overseas. And so I strongly believe that's why we have long tenure in our company, because we listened to the staff and took those things off them. So for me, the monetary saving in that is phenomenal compared to the hourly saving that I get. So those are the things that drive up your profit margin, because somebody in Australia can do something. If they've been doing it 17 years, they can do it in a quarter of the time that a new person can. That's the savings that you get. Our average customer, I think I mentioned to you in one of our previous conversations, we took the Jerry Maguire approach. We actually reduced the number of customers we have so that we can provide better service to the customers that we do have.
So go back to that for a second.
Yep.
When and why the heck would you reduce customers, especially when you have found this magical way to have more capacity?
I'll phrase it this way, and it's a saying that I like to tell all my staff. The customer is always right. Everyone's heard that, but they're not always the right customer for us.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got to be happy enough in your business and confident enough to draw a line in the sand and go, right, what makes up the perfect client for us? Mm-hmm. And we looked at a lot of the clients that we had, and a lot of the clients were not using us very often and not listening to the recommendations that we make. And as a consequence to that, would often complain when something happened. And there's only so many times in life you can say, I told you so, and not sound too condescending. There's only so many polite ways of having that conversation. So we just made the decision that, you know what, we're all getting older in life. We've been doing this for a long time. We want to enjoy work. We don't want work to rule us. And so we started to reduce the customers. Naturally, by churn, whenever our rates change and somebody wanted to argue, we go, that's our current rate. Or if they wanted us to compete because they got another quote and we didn't want them, we said, I'm sorry, you're probably best served by these guys. And so we reduced the number of customers. And our top 20 clients on average have been with us over 15 years.
Wow.
So we have a very steady client base, a very steady workforce. That's probably why we have a steady client base, because we don't have churn in the workforce of our team. So sometimes, as I said, I think at the start of the chat, people chase larger MRR and ARR. I think that's a dangerous slippery slope, because increased revenue doesn't always mean a happier business or happier staff or happier customers. It just means a larger number that you can put on your tax return each year. And that doesn't always help.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think you said something of like, this can help you buy back your time, right, as an owner.
Yeah. So today's a Wednesday in Australia, and I spend every Wednesday at home. I walk my kids to school just before this call, and I'll go and pick them up after school. And I've done that now for probably the best part of the last 10 years. As business owners, we've got to remember that we shouldn't let the business control all of our time. You've got to make sure your priorities are right. And sometimes we get lost in the forest. We're too busy doing things that we don't see what's around us. And I think that's the key. It's the one thing you can't get back. It's the most precious commodity. So I say to a lot of the customers, by having a team offshore, you are buying the one thing that you can't buy, and that's time. It means that you spend more time with your clients. You don't have to rush. It might be that you can then send your staff on training. When I ask the question, why don't you train your staff, the number one reason MSPs around the world give me, they don't have time to do training. So you've got to find a way to create that time. And remember, whether it's 2 or 3 resources for the cost of one, you're not buying more manpower, you're buying more time. And that's, at the end of the day, that's all we sell really as an MSP. We sell time, our time.
Yeah. Is there a certain size or maturity that if I'm an MSP, I should think about doing this?
Yeah, look, whether you're a one-man show or whether you're a multinational, we've got customers that are one-man operators. We've got 4 clients that are all billion plus in the US. So it goes across spectrums. It goes across the positions inside your company. The biggest mistake people make is they think they should put their technicians overseas. I wouldn't. I'd put my sales admins overseas, people that are doing your quotes, people that are just doing your purchasing. I mentioned to you, we only have 1 salesperson in our company. We have 3 sales admins in the Philippines that buy and sell all of our equipment. You can start with 1 because 62% of people, 63% of people who take 1 staff member overseas, within 6 to 8 months, will take a second. Because once you can see how you can change your business structure and you get the confidence in that, then you'll grow your business. So no, the sweet spot for us as a company, I would say, is anybody who wants to grow their business.
So it's growth mindset.
Yep.
What about operational maturity? Because if everything's well documented, man, this is going to be really easy. But I can see that I probably need it the most.
Yep.
If I'm lacking that.
It's a good question. It's one we get asked a lot. I'll answer it this way. On the plane, when we went there 14 years ago, Peter Hammond, who runs the operation for me there, was our chief web developer. So I put him in charge of the business over there. He knew nothing about backups. He knew nothing about the MSP side of it. Great web developer, great artist. On the plane, on the way over, we're writing all of our procedures, literally on the back of napkins. That's how we were doing it. Do not let not having good documentation or structure or operational awareness stop you. Use this to correct that problem in your business. And that may mean that you have to hop on a plane and go there and sit with your staff, wherever they are in the world, and train them one-on-one, but then get them to write the procedure. Your time poor. You might be able to show them how to do it, but get them to write the procedure. A journey starts with the first step, and I have so many MSPs that say, I can't do this yet until my documentation is done, but use this to create your documentation. Take that pressure off, because if you haven't done it yet, you're never going to do it. And that's the problem. You won't be able to scale. And I mentioned earlier that 3 to 5, and that's what we see. MSPs that are 3 to 5 people, very few of them will scale because they don't get out of their own way. So I would say don't let it be a barrier. What's the worst that's going to happen is you're going to turn around and rip up $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in 1 year. So if that $50,000 is going to send your business bankrupt, don't do it, but sell your business tomorrow because you're not a business owner. That's what I would say. You shouldn't be in business. If you can lose $50,000 and it's really annoying, and it should be because we're not in business to lose money, then you'll make it work. That's what I'd say to that one.
So we're talking about buying back your time. How in the world do you manage to build 40-person MSP and 1,000-person offshoring company, take your daughter to school, and never mind just like how did your MSP survive when you got all that growth and all that craziness?
I can give you my answer. I can give you my wife's answer. That'd be very different.
I'd love to hear both.
Yes, I don't. She's in the other room, so I'm not going to let her give her answer because that might be different.
Bring her in. We'll put her right on.
Oh no way! I'll get in trouble. I'll give you. We made a mistake with our MSP. My brother and I, we owned it together, and one of us was always in the business. One of us was always there to manage it. We never took the same time off. It got worse. We hired our mum as our office manager to look after the books. Oh, wow. And then about 2 years later, we hired our dad to become our driver and warehouse manager. So this is the second generation hiring the first generation to run the business. Our mum turned around to us and said, we're having a family holiday and we're all going. And we said, well, no, we both can't. But which son do you want to go with you on the family holiday? And she goes, no, you're both coming. When your mum tells you that, you don't have a choice. So we put our senior engineer at the time, who's the most experienced person, in charge. And he said to me, what if I make a mistake?
MSP.
Yeah, in the MSP. He goes, what if I make a mistake? We said, as long as you can come back to us and explain how you got your thought process, how did you get to making the mistake, and show us how you got there, even if it's wrong, we won't care. And he goes, hang on a sec, if I make a $50,000 mistake, a $100,000 mistake, I said, as long as you can show us the process on how you got there, it's our job to help correct your thinking on how you got there. There's one answer I will never accept from any staff member of mine, and that is the words, I didn't think. Because you're only paid to do one thing, and that's think. And so we went away, and something miraculous happened. We came home a week later, and our business was better than it was the week before we left.
How was it better?
Well, being brothers, we fight all the time. So the staff go, it was peaceful and quiet. The customers all got served. The building was there. There was no fire. There was no resignations. And we learnt from that you don't have to keep full control. You have to have the right people in the right seat in the bus. When we started TGT, from day one, we put a management and an executive team in. We would travel over there every 4 to 6 weeks. And then slowly, last year, I only physically went there 3 times. If you have the right management team and the right people, then the organisation will run itself. We run both of our businesses on one word, and that's culture. If you get the culture right, then everything else stems from that, because the right people and the right culture will treat your customers the right way, and that will take care of the aspects of the money and all the other parts of business. So that's the secret, putting the right people in place and letting them actually do their job and giving them guidance, not overseeing and micromanaging them. We didn't know that at the start, and it took us a lot of years to work that out.
So help us with culture. I got so many MSPs that still think everybody's got to come into the office. There can't be hybrid, or maybe there's a day or two hybrid. The struggle with remote, and remote's different. I know in all the years I've been doing remote, it is very different. But I know enough to know that considerably different time zones, different, not only country, but continent.
Yep. And
more importantly, I think cultural differences, right? 13-month pay is not something we're used to in the US, right? So there's these differences. So how did you figure out how to do this when you're really the definition of remote with 2/3 of your MSP?
Yeah, somebody asked me the other day, and I said, well, I was in Hawaii a couple of weeks ago for a conference in Hawaii, and they said something, where's your office? I said, well, I live in Melbourne. For me to go to the office takes me 8.5 hours. They go, that's a long drive. I go, no, I've got to fly 8.5 hours from Melbourne to get to my office in the Philippines. But most of my customers are now in America, which is why I spend so much time. I think last year I probably spent 2-3 months in America. Culture starts from the top down. Simple as that. Every single employee who works in our company can ring me or contact me at any time. And it is difficult because we're a 24/7 operation and we have customers all around the world. So there's always something going on. And my wife laughs, depending on the time of day, she knows who it's going to be on the phone, or ringing or messaging. But you start by, we are an office-first company. And we use that term office first, not office only. I strongly believe that the culture that we started with and we developed was because we're all in the office. We make it more fun to be in the office than not. Now, in Australia, in the MSP, our senior management team are in the office 5 days a week. Not because we made them, but because they want to be. It's easier to collaborate. It's easier to have culture. You can't have a spontaneous Teams call. You can't bump into somebody or say, you know what, I'm going to get a kebab today. Anyone want a kebab? Yep, let's go down the shop together. And you wouldn't normally converse with that person. So we're an office-first company in both our MSP and in TGT. Over 90% of our staff in the Philippines and Sri Lanka work in an office, not at home. But we're not an office only, because we understand there are certain people who can't be in an office or work better when they're not in that structured environment. Mm-hmm. The way we bridge the culture, we have an entire team at TGT. There's about 12 people in our staff engagement team, our employee engagement team. Their sole job is to make it more fun in the office than not in the office. And those that can't make it, we do the usual. We celebrate birthdays. We celebrate Halloween and Easter. We bring in the families and make sure the families are involved. We provide medical care in the Philippines. So we have our own doctors, our own nurses. We run our own medical clinics in our buildings. And it's about looking after the staff. If you start there and look after your staff, they'll look after your customers. And then you start to build. And for us, culture is not a word. When we do shows around the world, one of the boards that we have is just a photo collage of all the fun things that we do.
Mm-hmm.
We all have to work, so why don't we make it fun? And then you get a better result. You get that longevity. I was entertaining a client in Manila 2 weeks ago, and we got talking, and as we walked around, he goes, "Oh, what's the longevity?" And he just started talking to some of my team. She goes, "I've been here 9 years. I'm 7." She goes, "I'm only new." He goes, "How long have you been here?" She goes, 5. So not just onshore but offshore, you can get that longevity if people buy in to your dream. People often say people buy into what you sell. I don't believe in selling. I believe that if you listen to what the customer needs and wants, then you can help them fix those problems. You're not selling to them. I think that's the big difference. Same with our staff. Our staff, we listen to them. We have, I think, 31 community groups amongst our staff in the Philippines. They are sports groups. They are people that like to plant trees, people that like to visit aged care, disability. What you have to tap into with the current generation is what is the driver, what is important to them. And if something's important to them, if you show that you are willing to support that, then that's how you build the culture. So TGT supports, I think, about 30 different charities and organisational groups around the Philippines, only because it's important to our staff. And if it's important to them, then it's important to us. But it absolutely has to start from the top down.
Everybody talks about culture and making it fun. Do you have any practical or pragmatic tips for where to start?
Absolutely. I'll give you an example. We provide a free hot meal every day for every staff member in the Philippines. We make our management team go down there and not only eat with the staff, I've actually directed them to go and serve the staff, and make sure they're part of that. We play a lot of games. We align with what's important to them and make sure that they know that we're here to support them. Really brief example, early on, how we started the culture. I was in the Philippines and one of our staff members had his video monitor literally right in front of his eyes. And I said, "You need glasses?" And he goes, "Yeah, I do." And it shocked me. I said, "Why don't you have them?" Because I can't afford them. And I said, "Well, how many of our staff here need glasses?" And we ended up getting a mobile optometrist to come in. And there was about 30 people who needed glasses, and they all knew that, which is what shocked me. It wasn't they didn't know, but they couldn't afford them. So we went and got them glasses, and we did a payment plan for them. So all of a sudden they all went, "Well, you're looking after us. This is not just about us turning up on time and doing a job and you collecting. You actually show staff members how you care about them, and that starts to build your culture." We had issues when we first started 14 years ago in the afternoon of lots of mistakes being made. And instead of just telling people off, what we did was Pete Hammond, who runs the operation, sat out amongst the staff, was trying to work out why were people making mistakes, at 2 to 4 p.m. in the afternoon. And what he observed was a lot of people yawning. And we're like, okay, let's get to the bottom of this. Why are people tired? It's not even a whole day. Then we discovered people weren't having their lunch because the area that we're in was very expensive. And so they wouldn't buy lunch because it was too expensive. They didn't bring lunch from home and they were hungry. If you're hungry, you become tired. If you're lethargic, you don't concentrate. You make mistakes. How do we fix it? 14 years or 12 years ago, we started serving free lunch to every staff member. So sometimes it's about seeing the problem and getting to the root of it and helping address and fix it. And then the staff see you fixing the problem and know that you're there to help. That's the start of building culture. Actions speak louder than words, and that's what you've got to do to start the culture. You can't just say we're having a movie night, everyone come along for free popcorn. That doesn't. If you want to do that, then make sure that you stand behind the counter, hand the popcorn out. Say hello to the wife or the husband or the kids. That's how you actively show culture in action. Yeah, so hopefully that gives you an idea.
I'll switch gears for a moment. What's the biggest lesson you've learned in all your years in business?
Okay. Trust your instincts. Not be afraid to have a go, but be calculated in that. I go back to the bucket of cash. Put a budget in place and say, if I lose that, it will hurt, but it will teach me a lesson. And just do it. That's probably the biggest thing. And if you're not willing to take some of those smaller risks, maybe owning a business is not right for you. Maybe you need to think about it. My accountant gave me advice when we first started. If you don't grow, you die. And grow doesn't necessarily, again, mean revenue. You need to grow the business, to grow the way you operate, and grow the team around you to be more capable, which is why I can sit here today and talk to you for a couple of hours. I have no issue that I've got 2 companies back there that are running perfectly fine. My phone hasn't rung once. I think they think it runs better if I'm not in it.
That's beautiful. If there's one thing you could do over or differently, what would that be?
I would have offshored 10 years earlier. I think I missed the boat doing it 14 years ago. That if I'd known what was on the doorstep and what was possible, I could have grown my MSP unbelievably larger earlier. And if I could have 2 things, the other would be I would have given more power and direction to my existing team earlier. I mentioned that my brother and I always stayed in the business. We learned from that. I mean, TGT has grown and been able to grow because we don't hold it back. We've got the right people in place. So putting people in place earlier, I think would definitely be the one that I'd look at.
What's something that you're looking forward to now?
In 3 weeks' time, I go on holidays with the family. That's what I'm looking forward to. I think we all need to remember that we are working to support our lives. We're not living to make sure that we work. And I think you've got to strike that balance. I can absolutely guarantee early on in the years I didn't do that. I've got 3 young kids, 3, 5 and 7, so I'm a lot more attuned now to making sure you've got to strike a balance in life. I'm looking forward to seeing where AI takes us. It does worry me a little bit. I mentioned to somebody on a call just before now, you jump on LinkedIn now, you don't know whether it's AI or real. It's getting to a point where how do you trust what you're seeing?
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes. I'm looking forward to seeing some regulation and not necessarily control, but some guidance around how and where it should be used. We're having a partner event in Australia in 2 months' time, and we want to talk about the ethics of AI, not the technology of AI. Because I think that's an important conversation to have.
Yeah, absolutely. What's your biggest challenge right now?
Keeping up with change and keeping up with the change of clients' expectations.
What do you mean by that?
That's in both businesses. I mentioned earlier, people are more time poor. They expect more immediate results. Internet goes off for 5 minutes. They're on the phone. It's a P1. The world's going to end and no internet for 5 minutes. I remember my first dial-up modem that I had. And, if it stayed connected for a few minutes, I was excited. Let alone if it went down. And now we're talking about the minute something drops, people, it's that immediacy. That's one of the challenges that we face. Dealing with people's expectations that when you offer, cybersecurity, they are 100% protected. Well, there's no such thing as 100%, and I think it's the client's expectations that are probably one of the biggest challenges for MSPs. Clients expect everything, but they're not always got the ability or willingness to let us deliver that, whether that be price or feature set or recommendations. Take you back to what I said where we decided to reduce our customer stack to those that wanted to engage, those that wanted to listen, because it allowed us. There's nothing more frustrating for a technical person than knowing the solution is the wrong solution but having no choice but to put it in. So I think biggest challenge, client expectations across the board for all of our companies and managing that expectation with reality.
Yeah. What's a number one book you would recommend to other owners?
Well, I'm going to go against everything. I read an article yesterday on LinkedIn that said that 85% of the world entrepreneurs do this, they read. I don't read books. I used to in the early years in the business, before the kids come along and the business got really busy. My wife and I were very lucky. We'd go to Thailand once a year, sit on the beach and read books. I wouldn't have read a book in years, but I like to read a lot of articles on LinkedIn, social media, and filter the FUD from the reality, and just take out what's happening around in world economies and that. So, yes, I do read. I wouldn't have the attention span to sit there and read an entire novel anymore or an entire book, but I like to see little snippets of what's going on and then paint my own picture. I believe that's probably one of the reasons why I think outside the square a bit. I'm not necessarily one to go with the standard process. My team hate me because I'll question it. I'm no longer technical. I haven't been technical in 20 years, but I don't mind questioning decisions that are made just to make sure we get to it. Instead of that, I'd say my favourite TV show is Air Crash Investigators. Because it's never just one thing that goes wrong. And I think that's something you can take in life, that there are always opportunities to improve the process as a whole, not just fix the problem at the end. And I think that's, for me, the approach that we take with everything that we do. Look at the entire process and see where could we have done better along the way, and not worry less about the outcome at the end, but if you put those triggers and things in place as you go along, then those bad outcomes should reduce or not be there in the first place. So I don't have a book, I'm afraid. I couldn't even make one up and tell you. I could probably Google off the side here and give you a name of a book, but I'd be lying.
Yeah. Interested if there was one that shaped you from years ago. Yeah. I love the TV show. I actually really enjoy the aircraft disasters as well.
Yeah,
you can always learn that it's, no matter how fault tolerant it is, and how many ways we think it couldn't fail.
Oh, absolutely. And sometimes it's out of your control. Sometimes it's environmental. Sometimes it's mechanical. Sometimes it's person. Sometimes it's a combination. Pete, who runs the Philippines for me, used to work on oil refineries, and he used to be an X-ray specialist. And you talk about how sometimes the perfect example of a catastrophe is when all the holes line up and the bullet goes straight through all the holes. He goes, it can happen. Very, very rare, but it can happen. And your job is to go back and say, right, what else could we put in place? What are the barriers? And I think as MSPs, security is, the biggest one of the two, obviously AI as well, but security, and you can't stop. All you can do is put barriers and layers in front. So, there you go.
That is awesome. Peter, for everybody that would love to reach out and connect with you, how can they find you?
Yeah, look, jump on LinkedIn. You'll find me on LinkedIn, Peter Bell, Techno Global Team. Or you can reach out to me, peterb@technoglobalteam.com. And happy to chat with anyone at any time. Obviously, if you're in the US, I'm asleep, send me an email.
Absolutely. That's amazing. Unless you're already in the US or Europe, perhaps.
You'll see me quite a bit. I'm at most of the trade shows. You can come up and see me there somewhere floating around.
There you go. This has been a gift. I really mean this from the bottom of my heart, Peter. I've learned so much, and I just want to say thank you for being on MSP Mindset today.
Damien, thank you very much for having me. It's been great catching up, and hopefully we didn't go too over.
Yeah, it was wonderful. Thank you.
Cheers, Damien.